Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Last Wrestling Podcast, because if I have a wrestling podcast, I have to talk about this, don't I? That's right, it's WrestleMania prediction time! Yay! This isn't what I want to be talking about this week, but it's WrestleMania week, I don't have a choice. However, I do have a choice to make a second video that is hopefully going to be posted at the same time this will, delving into the now famous John Oliver last week tonight absolute evisceration of WWE, and I'm going to enjoy that. I'm going to enjoy talking about that. But right now, it's the obligatory WrestleMania predictions! Yay! But to make this a little bit more interesting, I'm going to talk about what I would do if I was booking WWE, if somebody lost their mind and actually gave me the pencil. Rules are, I can't change any of the matches. Yes, Baron Corbin is the angle match. Live with it. I'm going to say what I think Vince is going to do, my actual predictions for WrestleMania. I'm going to say what I would do. That will vary a bit. And at the end, I'm going to do some broad strokes of how I would book WWE going forward. But I'm going to do the main event first. Ronda Rousey, Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, winner takes all triple threat match for the Raw and SmackDown Women's Championship. And yes, I am using this as a de facto title unification match. We'll talk about more of that a little bit later. Becky Lynch wins. 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 Now, the actual finish of this depends, I think, on whether or not Ronda Rousey is sticking around after Mania. If she is, I would have Lynch tap out Charlotte Flair to the disarm her. And if Rousey is leaving, at least for a while, I would have Lynch pin Rousey to send her off in a sore loser huff because art imitates life. But the last image of WrestleMania Liberty Crown is Becky Lynch with both belts, preferably to pyro and confetti, as the undisputed best woman in WWE. Match number 2, Brock Lesnar versus Seth Rollins. I think Lesnar's going to retain here. Now that Roman Reigns is back, I don't think Vince McMahon cares about Seth Rollins. I think he still thinks, and maybe he thinks because of the leukemia thing, that he can get Reigns over by beating Lesnar. So I think Seth Rollins is gonna get screwed out of this. The fact that this is, at best, the semifinal match means I think that WWE feels they have a little more room to have the heel win. Not what I would do. I would have Seth Rollins win and have a positive final moment with the Shield. I'm not going to talk about what I think the match order would be. That would be a whole different thing. Third match announced. Buddy Murphy versus Tony Nese. Buddy Murphy defending the Cruiserweight Championship. This is almost certainly going to be a pre-show match. And honestly, I don't know enough to have an opinion here. Don't watch 205 Live, so I'm just going to say Buddy Murphy retains. Match number 4. Oh boy, here we go. Triple H versus Batista in a no-holds-barred match, where if Triple H loses, he must retire from in-ring competition. Oh, this is terrible. Obviously, Triple H wins. You can't throw in that must-retire stip with the one guy that you know is going to still be here the next day. If they had done it as a mutual thing, that if Triple H wins, Batista can never wrestle again. If Batista wins, Triple H can never wrestle again. That would have given them enough plausible deniability to actually do this, but I don't get to rebook this. It is what it is. Triple H, I've got a new role for Triple H going forward. We'll talk about that later. Batista's not sticking around. But the one thing I want to question here, who's the good guy? Okay, I get it. Triple H is supposed to be the stalwart WWE lifer, defender of the faith, yada yada yada, against this heretic who ran off to Hollywood and left the poor WWE universe out in the cold. Yeah, no, I'm not buying that, but I think that's the story they're trying to tell. Here's the problem: everything Batista said when he listed his grievances against Triple H, all of that was correct within the storyline. Don't don't include the backstage stuff that not everybody knows about, but just what has been shown on television. Yeah, Triple H used Batista as hired muscle and protection in Evolution. As soon as Batista became a threat to Triple H turned on him, and, Triple H does have a history of screwing over other superstars to help himself. Triple H, the character, is an asshole. Never met the man himself, so who knows, but the character is not a good person. And pretty much everything Batista said about him was accurate. So Batista should be the good guy here. I mean, yes, the best villains think that they're the heroes and can almost convince the audience. Keyword, almost. Batista just comes off as the good guy here. But yeah, Triple H is going to win, no question. Kurt Angle versus Baron Corbin in a singles match, Kurt Angle's retirement match. Angle wins. Because I don't think Baron Corbin would really benefit too much from beating Angle. He would just... The heat wouldn't go to him, the heat would go to the company. And that's something that, especially in 2019, you really want to avoid. So I think Kurt Angle wins here. This needs to be a short, sharp shock. A few suplexes, Olympic slam, ankle lock, tappity-tappity, bye-bye Baron Corbin. Kurt Angle celebrates, conducts the you suck, and leaves his boots in the ring. Shane McMahon versus The Miz in a Falls Count Anywhere match. Oh my god, I do not care. The Miz is a neglected child, and Shane McMahon is a neglected child, who are, despite the fact they're both grown men with families and children of their own, they're settling their daddy issues in a wrestling match, and not against either of their fathers. Hell, it almost might have been a better idea to have these two team up against Vince McMahon and Miz's dad. I am kidding, but I'm almost not kidding. Shane McMahon usually loses at WrestleMania, so then again, he is a McMahon. I'm actually going to say The Miz wins this. I think that's what Vince is going to do. I would actually have that happen too, but I've got a storyline for Miz going forward that I don't think they're going to do. Match number 7, AJ Styles versus Randy Orton. Again, I do not care. AJ Styles has recently re-signed a contract extension, or signed a new contract with WWE, so he's going to be sticking around, and maybe that means he wins. I would actually have Randy Orton win this, because WWE is hurting for good heels, and Randy Orton, when he's motivated, which admittedly isn't all that often, he's a really good heel. So I would have Orton win, AJ can recover. Match number 8, and we're going to have to take a big deep breath for this one. Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. Announced so far, 29 of 30 participants. Braun Strowman, 2 guys from SNL, Apollo Crews, Titus O'Neil, Tyler Breeze, Jinder Mahal, No Way Jose, Bobby Roode, Chad Gable, Kalisto, Grand Metalik, Lindsay Dorado, Bo Dallas, Curtis Axel, Heath Slater, Rhino, Victor, Connor, Andrade, Ali, Sheldon Benjamin, Luke Gallows, Carl Anderson, Matt Hardy, Jeff Hardy, Otis Tucker, and EC3. Braun Strowman. They gotta do something to rehabilitate Braun Strowman. They're out of stunts for him to do, so he has to win and maybe break the Andre trophy. I don't know. Honestly, not sure what I would do with him going forward. But yeah, Braun Strowman's going to win. That's what I think they're going to do. That's what I would do. He's a giant. He should have his name on the trophy. Samoa Joe versus Rey Mysterio for the U.S. title. Joe defending. This is the one time tonight I think it's the good idea to have the heel win. And I think that's what WWE is going to do. I'm predicting Samoa Joe to retain with help from Dominic Mysterio. Is that his name? Is that his full name? I assume so, but yeah. Dominic. Now, they're probably going to tell some kind of a story that Samoa Joe got into Dominic's head. No. That's not the story I would tell here. I would have Dominic turn on his father because, Dad, you wagered custody of me in a freaking wrestling match! I was in elementary school! I was a child! And you were ready to give me away! What the hell is wrong with you? So, decade plus of pent-up frustration and anger against his father, who, when you think about it, not the greatest father in the world in storyline. I'm sure he's a great father in real life. Dominic turns on Mysterio not to help Samoa Joe, though Joe does benefit from this, but because you were gonna give me away to the Guerrero family. Heck, maybe have Vicky come back for this. I don't know. Match 10, Bobby Lashley versus Finn Balor for the IC title, and I think they pretty much established now that it is going to be the Demon, so Finn Balor wins. Finn Balor wins because the Demon doesn't lose. I think that's what WWE is going to do. Honestly, this is one where I'm really prepared to be wrong, and they keep it on Lashley. But Balor wins, the Demon wins, the man can lose all the time, but the Demon wins. And from there, I would have a storyline where we finally flesh out the mythology of the Demon King. And basically, I would use the story from the WWE comic book. I think it's either Dark Horse or IDW. That's been doing WWE comic books for a while now. And they actually had an origin story for the Finn Balor Demon character. And it was really, really good and explained why he doesn't use it that much. Because the Demon is too powerful. And if he uses it too often, he risks being corrupted and consumed by the Demon. That's a good story. Use that. Alright, next, match 11, Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre in a singles match. This is where I'm going to differ from Vince. I think in reality, Roman Reigns wins because leukemia, because comeback, because feel good, because it's Roman Reigns. What I would do the exact opposite. I would have Drew McIntyre win. He would cheat to do it, but he would beat him. And he would use that going forward as essentially his bona fides as a main eventer. I think Drew McIntyre has a huge upside as a heel, and this win would not only give him that momentum, but Reigns losing, the crowd is already starting to turn on him because they've started to realize, oh shit, here we go again. Reigns losing might assuage a few fears there. So Vince is going to have Reigns win. I would have McIntyre win. Match number 12, four-way tag team match for the Women's Tag Team Championship. The Boston Hug Connection versus the Divas of Doom, Beth Phoenix and Natalya, versus the Iconics, versus Billie Kay and Peyton Royce, versus Nia Jax and Tamina. Boston Hug Connection pretty much have to retain here, because again, we're going to be building up to horsewomen versus horsewomen, and the more belts, the better. Match 13, so far down on the list because it's one of the last matches to be added. Daniel Bryan defending the WWE title against Kofi Kingston. Kofi Kingston has to freaking win this. We've basically got the story of the old plantation owner versus basically his uppity slaves. They've tried to dog whistle this. They failed. It's been more of a vuvuzela. And the fact that we're coming a week away from Vince McMahon being called out on national television for using the N-word in a comedy skit, Kofi Kingston has to win this, and it has to be the beginning of the end for the Vince McMahon character. This cannot be a fluke. He can't lose the title next week on SmackDown back to Daniel Bryan. He has to actually win it and keep it and be booked strong against a series of great white hopes that Vince sends against him, and Kofi has to beat all of them. It has to be a classic WWF style, Hogan style, if you will, championship run. line up the monsters, line up the dragons, and let the hero slay them. But here's how you're going to have to do it. Kofi Kingston beats Daniel Bryan, beats him clean. Nobody turns. There's no interference. New Day stops Rowan from interfering a couple of times, but nobody actually gets involved in the match. It's a clean win for Kofi Kingston. Kofi Kingston on either that night at WrestleMania or the next night, or the next Tuesday on SmackDown, has to deliver the promo of his effing life. Basically, he has to say, I've had to deal with so much in my career. I've been kept down, I've been put down, I've had to work twice as hard to get half as far as people who don't have my level of talent. I've had to be a clown. I've had to be a shuckin' jiving dancing minstrel show. But I've always known that behind the pancakes and the unicorn horns and the cereal and all of the costumes and all of this, I've always known that if you have this, points to his own head, if you follow this, points to his own heart, if you have these, points to his friends, and if you work hard, and if you don't always do what you're told, but you always do what you know is right, then you will get this. Holds up the title. And he makes it clear that this isn't about Vince McMahon. This isn't about the old, white, privileged, rich bigots that we've all had to deal with in our lives. Whatever the color of your skin, you've had to deal with somebody trying to keep you down. Well, guess what? Those days are over! And that's probably not the best way to say it. I'm just improvising that. But that's what he's going to have to do. And that's going to have to lead to a story of Vince McMahon essentially coming unraveled and getting more and more racist to the point that his family has to stage an intervention, or the board of directors has to get rid of him, or something, and he can go off and try to start a football league. Last match announced for the card, the WrestleMania Women's Battle Royal for the Vagina Trophy. And here we go again. 13 wrestlers announced. Dana Brooke, Mickie James, Ruby Riott, Liv Morgan, Sarah Logan, Asuka, Carmella, Naomi, Lana, Mandy Rose, Sonya Deville, Zelina Vega, and Nikki Cross. Gotta be Asuka. Doesn't really matter, but she's gotta get the consolation prize after getting screwed out of a title match. Yeah, Asuka has to win the Vagina Trophy, and this has got to be the beginning of some kind of an effort to rehabilitate her character. Either that or just get rid of her and let her go earn a living elsewhere. That's it for the WrestleMania card. Now, where would I take WWE going forward over the next year? First thing, the next night on Raw, the Raw after Mania, make a huge announcement. At WrestleMania 36, in wherever the hell they're going to hold it, there will be 3 title unification matches. The WWE and Universal Championships will be unified. The Raw and SmackDown Tag Team titles will be unified. And the IC and US titles will be unified. At the end of the show, at the end of WrestleMania 36, we will have one WWE champion, one pair of WWE Tag Team champions, and either a US champion or an Intercontinental champion, depending on who wins the match. In the future, the men's champion, the women's champion, the men's tag team champions, and the women's tag team champions will be available to both, and the Intercontinental champion, or IC champion, will be available to both brands. The Cruiserweight title will remain exclusive to 205 Live. The NXT titles will remain exclusive to NXT, the only exception being the women's tag team titles, because NXT does not have a women's tag division. But everything else will be exclusive to NXT. The NXT UK titles and any other NXT Japan, NXT Mexico, whatever, will remain exclusive to those territories. So from that point on, every title match matters, because you could be booking your own ticket to WrestleMania and history. So that's the overarching story arc, I should say, of the year is the journey towards title unification. And I would start by announcing that the Raw and SmackDown women's titles are unified. Becky Lynch can carry around both belts for a while until we get either a new unified women's championship, or we decide just to keep the red belt, the Raw title, because that was the original, and frankly, I think it looks better. Okay, major characters going forward. Because we've got Brock Lesnar retaining, probably. Basically, get the belt off of Lesnar and onto Reigns as soon as possible. Then have him feud with Drew McIntyre to establish McIntyre as a top-level heel. And we move on from there. As for the SmackDown title, Kofi Kingston, as I said earlier, has to retain for a while. Vince gets progressively more racist, and here's the big thing. This will lead to an intervention. Essentially, we're going to Me Too Mr. McMahon out of existence. Again, this is not what they're going to do, this is what I would do. And we're going to establish Triple H as the one sole and lone authority figure in WWE, on the main roster. William Regal will still be the general manager of NXT, but Triple H is going to run Raw and SmackDown on camera, if not behind the scenes. But he's going to be in a backstage, we're not going to see him that much, Jack Tunney kind of a role. He'll show up for major announcements, he'll show up for pay-per-views, he'll certainly be there for WrestleMania, but he's not going to be an every-week occurrence. There will be no every-week authority figure. We've got to get rid of that. They will be spoken about. Triple H has made this match. Triple H has announced a tournament for blah, 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 blah. That sort of thing. We are also going to turn Triple H full babyface. We're going to make his NXT character and his WWE character pretty much the same person. And the impetus for this, the inciting incident for his character alignment shift, is going to be the Batista match. Because Triple H has finally realized, with age comes wisdom, he has finally realized that he was a total jackass for most of his life, for most of his professional life. And the demons of his past, in the form of Batista, came back to bite him on the ass. This leads him to a personal revelation that maybe he shouldn't be so much of a self-centered jackass for the rest of his life. And that would at least give a storyline explanation for why the character is changing. Now, he could still have to deal with the occasional consequence of his past behavior, but this would at least explain why he's becoming NXT Triple H in WWE. We would also probably not have Stephanie on camera for a very long time, at least until she learns how to not play the Stephanie McMahon character, because that's the last thing we need. We don't need a heel Stephanie and a babyface Triple H unless you're going to have these two break up on screen, which not only are they not going to do, I don't think they should do. A few other characters. I already talked about the corruption story with Finn Balor. I would have him start using the demon more often until it becomes like a drug. Eventually he can't stop. And the other babyfaces are going to have to sort of pull him back from the brink of oblivion, possibly by beating him in a wrestling match. The Miz, I would tell a story arc of redemption. After all this stuff with his father, after all this garbage with Shane, he realizes again that he's a family man now, that he has to be a good person, he has to be a role model for his kids. And this can tie into the Miz and Mrs. thing. It's easy to be a heel when, hey everybody, look at my beautiful hot wife that only I get to have, because misogyny. But it's a lot harder to do that when you're a father. Kevin Owens can make it work, using that as a hypocritical excuse for him being a bad person, for him being a cheater, but I don't think The Miz could pull off that character, and I would actually have Kevin Owens shift back to that prize fighter, it's okay that I cheat because I cheat for my family persona. And actually, I would have that be a feud with The Miz eventually, sort of the Miz seeing his own dark side, there but for the grace of God go I. However, the obstacle for the Miz is that nobody believes him. He's been a jerk for so many years that nobody believes he's turned over a new leaf, and he has to continually prove himself to everybody. And maybe he doesn't always do that. Maybe he occasionally fails and embraces the darkness. I don't know. But that would be his story arc, would be redemption. As for the women's tag team division, I would make a big point of just establishing as many tag teams as I can, establishing the floating champion concept, and keep it to 2-on-2, well, not singles, but team versus one team tag team title defenses as long as possible. Don't do these 3-way, 4-way stupidities. Make wrestlers wait their turn. Don't do all of your title matches at once. Up next, Dominic Mysterio, or Dominic, just Dominic. He actually makes a point, don't call me Mysterio. He becomes an antagonist for his father. He supports whoever his father is in a feud with. This will eventually lead to Rey Mysterio apologizing for his terrible behavior back in the day, and eventually a match with his son. And through the crucible of combat, father and son reconcile and become a tag team. Happy story there. Let's see, any other major characters that I've left off here? Asuka. Oh, yes, in the women's division. Yes. Asuka, we would build her back up as undefeated for another year. And actually 2 years. I would have her go 2 whole WrestleManias without losing a wrestling match. I know that's a big thing, but we need to reestablish Asuka. And she needs to win quickly, decisively, most of the time. Pay-per-view matches, she can go a little bit long. But I would keep her as the undefeated monster, and then 2 years from now, WrestleMania 37, I would have her do the big match with Charlotte. Once upon a time, Charlotte was ready for Asuka, but now Asuka has to prove she's ready for Charlotte. Meanwhile, for the rest of the women's division, we're establishing the Horsewomen versus Horsewomen match for WrestleMania 36. And basically, it will be situation normal in the women's division for a little while until Ronda Rousey comes back. And she brings Shayna Baszler and the other 2 horsewomen, who admittedly I don't know their names, she brings them in tow and makes Becky's life miserable. Makes the entire women's division's lives miserable. And this would eventually, probably SummerSlam-ish, get the title off of Becky. Put it back on Ronda Rousey. Now as a well-established crybaby heel, sore loser. This leads to good old-fashioned faction warfare, something we haven't had in WWE in a long time, and I don't think the women's division has ever really had. But 2 big groups, 4-on-4 is a fairly big group for WWE. You can maybe bring in other sort of second stringers, but I wouldn't. Basically, everybody who isn't Asuka is involved in this. Eventually, that leads to the 4-on-4 match at WrestleMania, but you do every combination. You do singles matches, tag team matches, trios matches, do series matches, do everything you can. I would, maybe, this is actually just an idea, just off the top of my head. WrestleMania, do the 4-on-4 at Survivor Series. But when it and that's the elimination thing. But when it comes to WrestleMania, the first ever main roster War Games match. Maybe not. Might be logistically difficult to do the 2 rings, but some kind of a massive stipulation match, some kind of a cage match, or 4-on-4 women's Hell in the Cell, something like that. Blow that off at WrestleMania 36. And then you can make the next year about Asuka's quest for the title. I think that's about all the major stories I've got here, so thank you very much for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe. Click the little bell icon to enable notifications. Please check out my video breaking down the John Oliver segment. That was amazing. The John Oliver segment, my video is probably going to be pretty average, but please check it out anyway. Thanks for watching. Catchphrase sign off.